How's everybody doing? This is Mark Fisher with Mark and the Millennials, and we want to welcome you to the show and featuring Andrew Fulginiti and Ryan Brady. How you guys doing?
Good.
And we also, that's great.
Well, yeah, doing great.
We also have with us Adam Couture, who's our tech guy. How you doing, Adam?
Doing good.
Of course, he doesn't really have a microphone. So today, we're going to talk about banning skyscrapers, allowing terrorists to vote, millionaire socialists, and the dumbest bill in America. First, Bill DeBlasio wants to ban skyscrapers. We have a clip on this. You got to listen to it to really understand how stupid this is.
So talk about New York's Green New Deal. Obviously, the one presented in Congress has actually caused a rift, even among Democrats. What are you doing in New York City? How does that provide a roadmap for Democrats and independents and some progressive or forward-thinking Republicans nationwide?
We're actually making the Green New Deal come alive here in New York City. So we have our own Green New Deal. It's three very basic ideas. One, the biggest source of emissions in New York City is buildings. We're putting clear, strong mandates, the first of any major city on the earth to say to building owners, you got to clean up your act, you got to retrofit, you got to save energy. If you don't do it by 2030, there will be serious fines as high as $1 million or more for the biggest buildings.
So gentlemen, Bill DeBlasio wants to ban steel and glass in New York City because they are big emitters of emissions. What emissions? I mean, what is he talking about? CO2 or what?
This is a new war on buildings. I mean, I think he's trying to, attack them because he says they use too much energy. They're, sucking up energy from the grid. And I mean, I guess he thinks that it's not in their best interest already to cut energy costs. I mean, I would think that, they already have an incentive to cut energy costs because they're the ones paying the bill. Absolutely.
And of course, you're not going to get tenants in your building unless you have a really efficient building, and that it's not going to be very expensive. I mean, obviously it's competition, and New York has tremendous competition with all the buildings. Makes perfect sense. But why do Democrats, Ryan, always want to ban things? What is it about the Democratic Party? Rather than encourage innovation, they just want to ban.
Well, they just kind of also just want to penalize people from doing things that makes it more efficient, that's cost effective and more effective in the sense of being just energy efficiency is great to have, but it's not really cost effective at the moment. And honestly, if they had Amazon tax dollars, they could actually create a program and retrofit everything by the state.
But doesn't this sound like Stalin? I mean, he sounds like Stalin. Like, I'm going to get my wand and my scepter, and from this point forward, we're not going to have buildings.
Yeah, I mean, I think they always jump the gun, too, when it comes to, waiting for innovation to take place and then, enacting legislation. They jump ahead of innovation. I mean, what innovation has occurred that's going to allow them to use new types of building materials that are more energy efficient than steel and glass and the traditional things used to build skyscrapers?
And they would usually cost more, as we see how this energy debate goes on.
Yeah, and another big talking point they have is, well, birds run into these glass skyscrapers and they kill birds, these glass skyscrapers. But don't windmills do that as well? Wind turbines, which of course they kill thousands of migratory birds every year. How about, why aren't they bad?
I mean, you can make that argument about literally any type of man-built structure.
Absolutely. So do you think this is going to get any traction in New York City between the developers and the people, especially if people find out that, they're going to have to completely retrofit the entire city of New York, and that's somehow going to create jobs? I mean, this is the guy that chased out Amazon, after all.
I don't see how it can happen. I mean, New York's some of the most sought-after real estate in the entire United States, and it's limited in space, so they always have to build up. So skyscrapers are not going anywhere. They can't build out in New York City. So I'm not sure that he's going to get a lot of support from the giant development community there.
He'll scare the developers out of the city.
Absolutely. And of course, who has lots of steel and glass in New York City? I mean, I almost think this is actually targeting Donald Trump. Trump Tower, of course, it's all steel and glass. It's gleaming. It's beautiful, of course. At least that's what Trump would tell you. I have different views, but it's not my style. I kind of like the Art Deco style of building in New York City. But I mean, don't you think this is part of the plan too? You can pass a bill. He can start going after Donald Trump and saying you're going to owe us $1 million every single day for not retrofitting your building.
Well, I thought the Trump Tower was built of solid gold, so this shouldn't affect him.
Trump would make you want to think that.
That's right. Dr. Evil, Donald Trump.
Very roundabout way.
Exactly. So next story. We have Kamala Harris, who wants terrorists to vote, or she wants to at least consider having terrorists to vote. We have a clip on this. She just can't believe it. Yeah, she wants to have a conversation. Let's hear the clip.
Another issue that I want to talk to you about, this is really important. I'm not sure if you were watching earlier, but Senator Bernie Sanders said that he is in favor of felons being able to vote while serving in prison. He was asked specifically about people like the Boston Marathon bomber, also people who are convicted of sexual assault, and he said, this is a quote, "The right to vote is inherent to our democracy, yes, even for terrible people." Do you agree with that, Senator?
I agree that the right to vote is one of the very important components of citizenship, and it is something that people should not be stripped of needlessly, which is why I have been long an advocate of making sure that the formerly incarcerated are not denied a right to vote, which is the case in so many states in our country. In some states, permanently deprived of the right to vote. And these are policies that go back to Jim Crow. These are policies that go back to the heart of policies that have been about disenfranchisement, policies that continue until today, and we need to take it seriously.
But people who are convicted in prison, like the Boston Marathon bomber, death row, people who are convicted of sexual assault, they should be able to vote?
I think we should have that conversation.
She thinks they should have the conversation of allowing a guy who butchered people with bombs that had, nuts and bolts in it and basically tore off, I think it was an 8-year-old's leg, and killed him. This person should have a right to vote. Andrew.
I mean, her answer was kind of like spineless. I mean, she didn't give an answer. She said a political answer. We should have the conversation. I mean, I feel like if you're running for president of the United States, you're the one to be making policy decisions, or at least advocating for policy decisions and leading the nation's, legislative branch and all that. You should be able to answer a question.
And they're moving left. I mean, it seems like she has to move left because she's not getting any traction, Ryan, right?
Yeah, no, that was a total politician response. As she said, formerly incarcerated or formerly convicted after they completed their sentence. But I do have to tend to this whole policy of giving felons the right to vote. If a felon finished his period of incarceration, finished his parole, and actually assimilate back to society, I don't see a reason why we can't bring them back into the fold by giving them the right to vote after they do all of these things. Not say, oh, they just got on parole.
So after they serve their time, they get out and the parole and so forth, then you think they should. But how about terrorists? I mean,
no.
But terrorists should never be let out of prison to begin with.
No,
right?
There should be some crimes that are beyond the pale that it won't be considered.
It's probably far and few between that if their sentences, if they are a terrorist, that they're probably likely not going to be getting out of prison, or they're going to be transported to a different country. Or
I mean, will millennials buy into this ever? This idea of Kamala Harris's, that people should get out of prison.
Well, I guess it's more. I mean, she probably agrees with it, but Bernie outright said he did agree with letting those incarcerated, even
including terrorists.
The right does not go away when they get the jail bar doors slammed on them.
Well, that's his policy, but that's not the way it's supposed to be. I mean, the Constitution, I think it's the 14th Amendment, talks about yes, you have the right to vote, and it's an inherent right. But it also, I think it references. It says it can be abridged if you commit rebellion or a crime
against a society.
Yeah,
you're not contributing to society. So you're being actually a detriment to society.
Yeah, people who support this idea say, well, it's not a privilege, it's a right. Well, it's a right that can be taken away.
Like with owning a gun. If you're a convicted felon, you can't own a gun. So are we going to talk about that?
Kamala Harris, when she said this, and when Bernie Sanders said this about terrorists having the right to vote, of course, Kamala said not quite the same thing. We should consider it. We should think about it and so forth and debate it. To me, if either one of them becomes the nominee in the Democratic Party for president of the United States, all Donald Trump has to do now is replay that, because it's so crazy that there's no way the American people. I mean, you're supposed to take this oath to protect and defend the Constitution of the United States. How could you do that by allowing terrorists to vote? Final thoughts on this, guys?
Good soundbite for the opposition team. Hopefully they don't miss it and they use it well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if I was Harris, and that's my belief, I'd at least take a stance on it. I mean, Bernie takes a stance, and he's I think as of right now he's leading pretty significantly on the Democratic side. So take a stance.
Yeah. He is. And speaking of Bernie, our next subject is the millionaire socialist. Bernie Sanders has made $3 million in the last 3 years, but he's a socialist. I didn't think that was supposed to happen when you're a socialist. We have a clip on this about this very subject. Let's hear this clip.
Breaking news, 2020 presidential candidate Bernie Sanders has released his tax returns. I got very excited. I started getting ahead of myself. Bernie Sanders is a millionaire.
CNN
Over the
gets
past 3
excited
years, Sanders
about
made nearly
socialists.
$3 million, which makes him, of course, one of the wealthy people that he himself targets on the campaign trail.
We are going to ask the millionaires and billionaires of this country to start paying their fair share of taxes.
Billionaires and millionaires have poured hundreds of millions of dollars into the political process supporting Republican candidates, and today is payback time for them.
Okay, Sanders tonight, though, insists he is not out to make enemies out of the rich.
It's not vilifying to say that people have a whole lot of money, in some cases billions of dollars of wealth. They should pay their fair share of taxes.
Yeah, well, how about Bernie? I mean, why don't we start with him? Like, hey, Bernie, you made $3 million the last 3 years. Why don't you give, like, I don't know, $2.5 million to the United States federal government and let them spend it on whatever they want to spend it on, because that's what you're asking everybody else to do. The guys, I mean, this is really central to me in this theme of Mark and the Millennials, is this idea that socialism has come back to the United States and so many millennials consider themselves to be socialists. I need your help on this. Is this appealing at all, Andrew?
The way he's selling it, yeah, but what I find more fascinating is that from those clips we played and then from his town hall interview at Fox, we see that Bernie Sanders, the leader of the socialist movement in America, believes in capitalism for himself, but socialism for everybody else. I mean, Brett Baer in the Fox News debate literally tried to call him out and said, well, you know, Senator Sanders, you made all this money on this book deal. Isn't that the definition of capitalism and the American dream? And he tried arguing by saying, no, I had a college education. I am a U.S. senator. And in my opinion, and basically saying that like he's done all of these things and not everyone gets to do that,
right.
Which to me is an insult, right?
Right.
He's basically saying
socialism doesn't apply to him.
He achieved it, but not everyone can achieve that. Not everyone can achieve college. Well, why not? I mean, if you work hard, isn't that part of it? Why can't everyone be a U.S. senator? They should be able to. I mean, he's basically insulting those people and saying, you know, that he achieved it so he can earn, you know, he earned all of that so he can keep it, but he wants to give everybody else who can't earn it free stuff.
Well said.
So based off that point, but basically, so he's saying if someone writes a book that becomes a bestseller or writes a really cool piece of code that turns into a big app that changes, I guess, the tech world, makes a lot of millions of dollars, that's not necessarily their success can be taken away from them because they don't have college.
It's just the usual thing, right? I mean, it's a socialist saying, and Andrew, I mean, you guys are making great points. He's basically saying, look, I'm really smart. You're not smart. Because I'm smart, I get to keep my money because I'm special and because I'm in the government. And therefore, you know, when we do this whole socialism thing, typical socialism, communism, the government keeps the money and the officials always keep their money because they're special. Everybody else has to give up their money and surrender their freedoms.
Because Big Brother knows best.
And I also think I think he may have been implying that like he's privileged to have those opportunities, but in a way he wasn't. I mean, he worked to get, you know, it's like, you know, he worked his whole life to earn those things. And I think he understands that, but I think he was trying to insinuate that, well, he's privileged and not everyone can do that.
Or he was going after the silver spoon people that didn't have to work to have their wealth. It was just given to him.
Exactly.
Right.
Final thoughts on this, guys. Come on. Bernie, what do you think? What do you think his chances are of winning the Democratic nomination? Because we're not talking about the nomination itself.
Mayor Buttigieg, if I say it right, he may come up from nowhere and actually take it over because he's young. He has, more of like insightful points that because Bernie's going to get that age question on him.
He meets all the intersectional things, right? He's young. Of course, he's not white. I mean, he is white. And
veteran,
he doesn't meet
deployed.
That part. Right.
You know, he's hitting a lot of millennial talking points.
Yeah, he is. Interesting.
Don't underestimate Bernie.
I think so too. I think Bernie wins it. I really do. I think he runs away with it unless they try to take it away from him somehow.
Either way, we have 22 Democrats running in this primary. It's going to be really crazy how we see how the vote breaks down.
Agreed. Next subject: Texas legislature votes on the biennium budget. And the reason why we're going to talk about this is because in Texas you have the legislature meets every other year on odd years, and they put together a budget that lasts a couple of years. And the thing is, this is a massive state. This is a very important state. It could be a country. It could be its own country, and it's a very wealthy state, and it's a state that innovation occurs in. So many Californians move there. So many people from all over the country are moving there because it's a low tax state. Of course, they have no state income tax. I don't think they do, at least. And it's very attractive for businesses. And yet this state is able to run itself while with only meeting every other year, and so many other states, of course, meet every single year, and they meet much longer. What do you guys think about this?
Yeah, not only do they meet every other year, I think they only meet for like a short amount, a couple months during that year. It's very short, and I mean, it's pretty fascinating. I think that the state can, I mean, there's the philosophy that the less, that the legislature is in session, the less, bad stuff they can do and pass and laws and all that kinds of stuff. So, I mean, a lot of people are really supportive. I think it's not a bad idea. I think it should be explored in a lot of other places.
Yep. So less is more?
Right, exactly.
That was a squirrel remark, Ron.
Squirrel! Thanks.
There we go. But, Texas, the thing is that this is really central to Mark and the Millennials, right? The more government meets, the more government tries to legislate. And the more government tries to legislate, the more freedoms are taken away, because legislators think always that they need to pass more bills because that's how they're measured. At least that's what they think.
That's why we talk about dumbest bill in America, because they have all this time on their hands to just pass things that don't matter.
Exactly.
Which waste taxpayer dollars.
Right.
Precisely, like banning skyscrapers. So next we have, in Missouri, a lawmaker introduces a bill to require gun ownership. I'm going to throw this one to Ryan because he's our gun guy.
I'm pro 2A, but this bill's dumb. Not everyone should be able to own a gun.
Why? Why?
Well,
come on, millennial perspective. Why?
Millennial perspective. Okay.
I know why. I want to know why.
Yeah, I just actually, because if you have any mental history that has you like really depressed, where you said you're going to harm yourself. We have a bunch of histories from shooters that actually say they had mental illness, they wrote manifestos, they've been checked up on, they were like, oh, they're fine. Then you see them commit a mass shooting, and it's like, where were the signs? Like, oh, they had a wellness check a month ago. No one really thought to look into anything, Or say, it just doesn't
I
feel
think
right.
This bill may actually exclude those people. I'm not sure. I haven't actually seen the bill. It said that if you qualify, you must own or possess, I think, a firearm. It was the concept, but I think it's awful as well, because there are sane people that, while they should have the right to, I don't think they want to, and I don't trust a person that doesn't want to own a gun to have a gun. I mean, I've been to ranges, and I'm not a big gun guy, but I've seen people, when you put a gun in their hand they never held before, it's frightening for them, and it's probably more frightening for the person who's next to them.
Oh, I'm eyeing the guy next to the range you okay with that?
I know.
Right.
And I had a different thought about this, which is the reason why this Missouri lawmaker put the bill in, because he figured Democrats are so afraid of guns that they'd all move out of the state.
Oh.
It would be, well, of course it is a Republican state, but it would continue to be. Final thoughts on this, Ryan? You're the gun dude. Come on, tell us what millennials think about this. Would millennials think this is a good idea or a bad idea?
No.
They would not think it was a good idea, and I'm not in favor for it. If you want to own a gun, that's your own personal decision. You shouldn't be forced to require one, because if you're not trained properly or you're not familiar with it, you could actually end up hurting yourself or people around you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, millennials are much, at least from my perspective, from what I hear, millennials are way more in favor of stricter gun laws. So this would be a no-no.
Actually, real quick, just remember this. I had a conversation with my liberal friends. I told them about some recent purchases I made, and it's like, really, you bought that? It's like, well, yeah.
That gun.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. And they said, well, if you had to buy a gun, if you're the one that had to own a gun, I'm fine with it. Everyone else, I'm not okay with. I'm like, oh, thanks, man.
Great compliment, I think. And speaking of guns, Baltimore has had the largest population loss since 2001. And we're bringing this up in this particular podcast because Baltimore has been controlled 100% by the Democratic Party for so long that no one even remembers the last time a Republican was elected. And yet, and of course, it's the murder capital of the country. I mean, they have an awful public education system, and people continue to leave. And there were a couple of stories about this. I think we have a clip on this, don't we, Adam? All right, let's hear the clip first.
Well, more people are leaving Baltimore than moving in. That's according to the U.S. Census Bureau. Alex Dimitrick reports this hasn't been this kind of population drop in nearly a decade.
The U.S. Census Bureau estimates Baltimore's population every year and finalizes it every 10. The last count finished in July 2018 and estimates more than 7,300 people left the city, the largest one-year loss since 2001, bringing Baltimore's population down to 602,495 people. for at least one city council member.
I think it's a shame, and I'm sorry to see it.
People move on for a lot of reasons, and they have for a number of years. But the prime driver can be traced back to the protests over the death of Freddie Gray while in police custody and rioting that followed. Ever since then, Baltimore's murder rate has soared, and the violence fueled by ongoing drug wars has motivated many to leave.
The population will come back as soon as we all together get this violence under control. And I have faith that our new commissioner is the right person to help us do that.
There have been new arrivals. The Census Bureau estimates nearly 2,000 immigrants from other countries have settled in Baltimore. And the Downtown Partnership of Baltimore sees new residential buildings and the rehab row houses of places like Canton and Fells Point as signs the downtown population is poised for growth, even as other parts of Baltimore show signs of abandonment. Alex Dimitri, WJZ.
Don't believe it for 1 minute. I mean, this city is an absolute gulag. I mean, they have a horrible public education system. It's an unsafe city. People have been leaving for decades. And of course, now it's accelerating again. Most cities in the United States, they're growing because millennials can't wait to move back into the city. And that's why we're talking about this particular city. Because here's a city, it's an old city, had 900,000 people at its peak. It's now down to about 600,000 people. And we have, the Baltimore Sun and other articles that have come out and said, oh, well, the population, here's one. Baltimore City's population is dropping, but new residents are flocking downtown. I mean, that's an oxymoron, right? I mean, either they're leaving, there's a net loss, or there isn't. Guys, what do you think? Andrew.
Let's see. Residents are fleeing. Why? Let's see. We've got crime rules the city. Like you said, murder capital of the world. Homicides are out of control. Yep. There's shootings probably daily, multiple daily. You've got failing schools. You've got corrupt schools.
And how bad are the schools? You got some stats on this.
Maryland does like a ranking system under a certain law they passed a few years back. They do a star system, and based on that star system, I researched it, and it said 83% of Baltimore City schools are considered failing schools.
It's incredible. It's just incredible.
So you've got a failing school system, a corrupt school system. There's corruption in the schools. You've got corruption in the police force. The FBI had to come in and clean up the Baltimore City police force. You got riots. You've got Johns Hopkins University, one of the most prestigious institutions in the country, hospital, school, they just received authority from the Maryland State Legislature to create their own police force. My only question is, where is Bruce Wayne? When you need him the most. Please.
Not to mention, the mayor of Baltimore wrote this Healthy Holly series of books. And and she's been giving contracts out to people that have been paying her to buy thousands and thousands of books. I mean, the city is just a complete mess. And who, of course, is the person the people that always suffer are the African Americans in the city who don't have a choice. They cannot leave. They cannot send their kids to better schools or to private schools. Thoughts, Ryan, about this overall problem in Baltimore?
Well, I have friends that live in Baltimore, but they say they love Baltimore, but then they also say they hate living in Baltimore because, it's just falling apart in other areas where they're not living. They're all living by the water in Canton, Fells Point, which are now being revitalized, and they're now actually getting like big shopping centers with all the retail that you could think of, and then it's just actually a booming part of the city, but everything else is suffering.
Yeah, but we're talking about a tiny little percentage of the city. I mean, the rest of the city is just imploding. It has become a gulag because no one wants to invest in the city because it's so unsafe. And if you do invest in the city, for example, if you buy a home, you better darn well send your kids to private school. You better be able to afford that. Not to mention the high property taxes.
The city's a history of mismanagement for decades, and they don't change leadership. You can look at the city council; they don't change who's running it.
Absolutely. Final thoughts on this, Andrew, about the city of Baltimore and how is it imploding?
Something's got to give, like you said. I mean, this city has been run by one party for decades. It's now being run by a mayor who is admittedly corrupt in her dealings and is not stepping down. She's pulling the old Ralph Northam and just waiting it out, and I don't see it getting better anytime soon.
Ryan.
And they keep asking the state for more money for For what? There's no progress with all the
Sure.
money they're getting.
They just want you to dump more money into the city, and of course 83% of their schools are failing, as Andrew said, and yet they won't offer, of course, these vouchers, private school vouchers or school choice, because the unions are so powerful. They'd rather keep people in their current situation in unsafe schools and bad schools and failing schools. And then they talk about mass incarceration. Why? Because you can't even learn it in the city. 83% of the schools are failed schools. It's just this is what a Democrat-controlled city looks like, in my opinion. It is nothing but failure. And the only way we're going to change it, of course, is to have a two-party system. So next we have a human interest story. We have a DoorDash driver who, and of course, these guys the millennials explain what a DoorDash driver is in a minute. But first we want to play a clip. The DoorDash driver's job, my understanding is, his job is just to deliver things. It's kind of a delivery service. And you order something from DoorDash, and then the DoorDash driver brings it to your door. But here is the clip.
A DoorDash delivery driver appearing to take a sip of the very milkshake he's about to deliver. The Malhotras didn't know what had happened until the next morning when they checked their doorbell camera footage.
I looked at it, hey, the guy who delivered the food was sipping out of my son's Cold Stone.
Malhotra says he likes buying delivery items, but now he's going to think twice before placing his next order.
I was like, whoa, that's crazy. I mean, how can somebody jeopardize a product that, especially the food?
It's his 14-year-old son in this doorbell security video.
I felt really disgusted about what had happened.
He tells Fox 40 he enjoyed his cookies and cream milkshake from Cold Stone until the next day. He wasn't the only one who tried his drink.
And then my dad told me to go check out the video from last night. And once I checked it out, I brushed 5-6 times, and then I felt really disgusted.
The Malhotras say they're glad no one got sick from the incident, but the experience left them with a sour taste.
We have a trust between the company and the drivers. Once the trust is broken, we can't, go back to them.
And now all they want is an apology from DoorDash and a promise this won't happen again.
It wasn't
to
me.
Someone else.
We just need a proper training and an apology. Hey, what you did was wrong, and we want to make sure that he doesn't do that to other people.
This kid's father, I think, has a sense of humor.
Absolutely. I mean, the funny thing is all they want is an apology. I think I'd want more than an apology.
Yeah.
I think I'd want the guy to take some sort of test to make sure I wasn't catching anything.
Right. Yeah. I think this kid's father has a nice sense of humor where they said in the video that instead of telling his son that he drank from the DoorDash driver drank from his milkshake, he told him, "Hey, go watch this video."
He was waiting for the gags.
Yeah, he must have already seen the video and known. Ugh, messed up.
So set this up, millennials. Come on, you have DoorDash. DoorDash. You order from them, and they'll deliver food from, I guess, a certain radius to your house. This kid, it looks like the only thing he ordered was a milkshake. I mean, seriously,
he's messing up.
Yeah, a poor choice.
But with DoorDash, though, what makes it unique from other services? Basically, DoorDash said, "Hey, if you want to get food delivered from your favorite restaurant, which does not do delivery or carry out." Well, carry out is DoorDash, sorry. Just delivery. You basically can order up the food, order it, and then they'll send the order. A driver will come up, pick up the food that you want, and you have dinner at your house from your favorite, steakhouse or whatever you want.
Which is cool, except now, of course, you're going to think twice because the food's on its way. And you're like, the dude's like, wow, those French fries smell really good. He reaches over in the seat and picks a French fry out and eats it.
Right, exactly. Well, this story has dual tech, right? Because they were caught based on the Ring doorbell system or some version of a Ring doorbell system, which is kind of cool. It makes me want to get one of those, to ensure, check people out. But
absolutely,
I still kind of want a milkshake after watching that. I don't know, is that weird?
Isn't that movie? What is that movie? Waiting. It has Ryan Reynolds in it.
Oh yeah,
right.
I think the same thing about you're not nice to the person, and then they do something to your food. Well,
always
here
be
it doesn't
nice to
even
your
matter.
Maybe this guy was mad that he just had to deliver a milkshake. He's like, hey, this is all you want? Well, I'm gonna take some of it.
Or they only did the 15% tip option instead of the 20.
I mean, do they charge you? Obviously, DoorDash, or they just work off of tips? How does that work?
You have the dasher fee, your taxes, and then usually the default's 15%, and then I always go to 20% because they're coming out of the way and deliver food for me. So why not?
Tip. Okay.
Yeah. So they're getting I think, solid money. I don't know how the business model works, but
So this is like Uber Eats. It's kind of the same concept.
pretty much.
All right, interesting. All right, and now, guys, for next, we have the dumbest bill in America, and that is the Green New Deal and banning skyscrapers in New York City. We did cover this a little bit, but the idea that we would ban skyscrapers in New York City, the reason people go there is to take a look at the skyscrapers because they think they're so awesome. And what do you guys think about this? Because obviously, Mayor DeBlasio is going to make this into a bill. I mean, he's going to have to pass this piece of legislation in New York City to ban them and to make everybody retrofit them. Andrew.
I mean, it sounds... I don't know how people come up with these ideas. I mean, when you think of skyscrapers, right, and the idea of skyscrapers, the first place you probably think of is New York City. I mean, that's what it's known for, is these massive buildings. It's a city that's built up on, you know, from the ground. And so I get the idea that, you know, this is part of that Green New Deal movement. They're trying to go, he said he's trying to go carbon neutral, I think by like 2050 or something like that. Yeah. I'm not sure how attacking buildings that don't have giant smokestacks on them or things like that is going to help them go carbon neutral, but it just kind of baffles me.
I think it's his way of shaking down the rich, you know, because obviously those are the people or institutions that own these buildings, the very wealthy, and this is a shakedown. I mean, that's what it feels like to me, right?
Yeah, I think just taking a guess here, the most energy-consuming part of a skyscraper is probably the HVAC system.
Sure.
And second, maybe the elevators and the lightings. But, you know, everything's now automated where the lights turn on and off when no one's in there with motion sensors. It just didn't sound right. It doesn't seem.
But first it was farting cows, right?
Yep.
And, you know, so we're going to get rid of those.
Banning airplane travel. Don't forget that.
Banning airplane travel. And now, you know, buildings. I mean, what's your new building going to look like? I mean, what are they going to have? Urban sprawl because you're not going to be able to build tall buildings? Or, I mean, it's just the dumbest thing I've ever heard of.
Eco-friendly
Final thoughts on this, guys.
Like I said previously, this is another Democratic idea that's preceding innovation, whereas we should allow innovation, you know, to move us forward when it comes to ideas like this.
It's about a command and control economy. It's
Right.
the top-down approach, which of course is completely Marxist socialist, which DeBlasio, I'm sure he admits that's actually who he is.
Well, I'm just waiting for him to announce he's running so we can add it to 23 Democrats running the primary.
Soon.
He's definitely putting his creds
positioning.
out there.
He's positioning.
There's no doubt. There's no doubt. So next we have UPS this is our tech talk. UPS begins using drones to transport medical samples at North Carolina hospitals. And the idea is that UPS is transporting medical supplies between hospitals using drones. I mean, this is really cool. And my understanding is you need to get FAA approval to do this because obviously they're flying very high and so forth. They need someone to operate them. But it kind of makes a lot of sense. Ryan, what do you think about this?
It's really cool.
Innovation.
It's really cool. I think it would help speed up medicine travel. Like maybe like if you need anti-venom in a hospital, I think 30 miles south has the anti-venom for spider bite or snake bite. They can send a drone over instead of relying on traditional methods of like a helicopter and a ambulance. But now I'm trying to wonder out what if somebody want to intercept a bunch of opioids. They know they start intercepting medicine by hacking into the drones and taking them off course.
Sure, more laws.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. Now, this is really neat. I mean, I think we all knew that like this was coming. I think I just heard recently that Blacksburg in Virginia was the first county in the nation, I think, to receive FAA approval to do drone deliveries. So they're starting to do it. It's coming. I'd like to see, one of the things I think I'd like to see drone deliveries for is maybe milkshakes, so people don't, you know, but this is, I think it's super cool.
no interaction with a human being.
Right, exactly.
Store-to-door service.
Right, yeah.
That poor family in
I
Texas,
approve of that, yeah.
They'd be good to go. But no, it seems like UPS and FedEx have decided that the next step for them is not just androids and robots to deliver things by ground, but also to use drones. And to do this, because of course this is a UPS test market, if you will, for hospitals. And it's really interesting to see, you know, how things are moving so quickly. And I think people are having a hard time keeping up with it. I mean, how about millennials? Do millennials think this is cool and fast moving and something that we should help out?
I think this is really cool. I just want to see how it's going to be implemented. I want to know how far the range these drones can go to maybe help more rural areas, so then you don't have to spend on gas per se. If they're maybe those solar powered drones, or they have good lifestyle batteries, they can make the reach to help other, you know, not as well serviced customers.
I think most millennials think this is cool. I mean, most of us, I would say, are probably techies and think drones are really neat until I would say I do as well, until like one day I did have a drone following me around the city, and I was convinced it was just following me. I swear this is true, and it kind of weirded me out, I gotta say. So when it comes to the spying aspect of drones, I think everyone's a little bit weary, but I think in general most people think it's really neat.
And to that like fear, it's like I could just imagine it's like the drone following you. It's like, well, due to your data of your shopping patterns, we know you're about to buy this McDonald's double cheeseburger, so here it is already. Here you go. We already charged you.
And my thought about these drones is obviously, this is going to be growing more and more as time goes on. But my thought is that sooner or later, because of where we're going to use them, one's going to fall because of the lack of battery storage,
maintenance,
and it's going to fall, or maintenance, what have you. And it's going to hit someone in the head and potentially kill them, especially if it's flying, hundreds of feet in the air, depending on what it's holding and so forth.
Yeah, I can't imagine like the insurance is going to be affected by that. But I've seen some of these drones have the capability that they can sense. I mean, obviously the system could always fail, but they can sense when their battery's low and they can automatically return.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So, well, folks, that's it for Mark and the Millennials. But we have a special fade out today of Bernie Sanders singing. That's right, it's Bernie Sanders. I think he's singing. But I want to thank especially Ryan Brady, Andrew Fulginiti, and Adam Coutura. This is Mark and the Millennials out. Listen to this. Go, Bernie.
Where have all the soldiers gone? Long time passing. Where have all the soldiers gone? Long time ago. Where have all the soldiers gone? Gone to graveyards, everyone. When will they ever learn? When will they ever learn?